I don't care about being remembered. I care about leaving the place better. Fear
Hmm.
gets used in such wrong ways, and fear gets confused with anxiety. If I'm worried about getting eaten by a lion and I'm thinking about that, there's no lions in here. That would be anxiety. But if I drop a lion who's hungry in my office, that's your true fear. Organizations need managers. They need people who are going to manage the process, who are going to manage inventory, manage finances, manage schedules. If you don't manage people, you lead people. Sometimes we can look at these things and people see it as, wow, this is a failure, this is a loss. Glass half full, glass half empty. If I'm coming to the mindset of the glass half empty, my life sucks. The glass half full, winning mindset.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now let's get it started. Welcome to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I'm going to be your host today, as usual. And in the studio, we have Jordan Modiano. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, Rick?
I'm doing fantastic. It's good to see you. I love the tie. My friend, it was interesting. My friend Mike Asherburner, he runs the Hounds of Business, and he's in this podcast. Mike never wears a tie, okay?
Right.
And he's in this show, and like the three other gentlemen in this show have ties on. So he has this T-shirt, and he just like ties a tie. Right. Amazing. Hey, folks, if you haven't done it already, I would love it if you would like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. And without further ado, let's get it started. Jordan, do me a favor. Why don't you let us know who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do?
Oh, if we got that kind of time, but we'll give it a shot. So, name's Jordan Modiano. What do I do? Big picture is I help people.
Let's go big picture, and
So
then
big picture
let's
is I
get
help
into
people.
like your area.
And then, so big picture is I help people. How do I do it? So I've got, in essence, two businesses and a not-for-profit, and one has stemmed to the other and to the other. So my current business, Express Employment Professionals, we help good people find good jobs. We help companies find good people. We change people's lives, but we help people find long-term gainful employment. We help companies find those people that they can't find. So that's one of the things. And I've got JordanModiano.com. So JordanModiano.com. I do motivational speaking. I do leadership training, really trying to impact people's lives and help them find purpose, find their passion, overcome adversity, do things like that. I've done things like gone down and spoke to the Albany Addiction Center, and I speak to people who are fighting some stuff and try and get past it and show what the power of their mind is. My hobby, and you could probably see some stuff behind me, my hobby is racing cars. So I do that for fun, even though it seems more like another job and another business, because we started the Modiano Motorsports, and it's an advertising company, so sponsors can spend money with that. But that stemmed to something else. So my daughter, we adopted my daughter. She's got autism. So I started racing the autism awareness car. And then I decided to partner with a racetrack, and we did an autism awareness race and made it a fundraiser and raised money and donated it to autism. And that became overwhelming. So I said, let's make it bigger and let's start a not-for-profit. So we started a not-for-profit called Races for Autism. And now I've got a not-for-profit called Races for Autism. And last year, we hired our first special needs person, and we figured out how to keep her on year round through our fundraising efforts. And we've just had our 4th annual Upstate Chevy Dealers Autism Acceptance Race. And just today, literally was a 1:30 call. It's Eastern time. It's 3:30 Eastern time, or 4 o'clock Eastern time now. We planned our first ever Races for Autism golf outing fundraiser, which is going to be this coming June. So yeah, that's what I do. And sometimes I sleep.
Doesn't sound like it. Hope it's not behind the wheel.
On occasion, but it usually stopped.
I hear you. One of the things that stuck out to me is it's like one thing to say, okay, I've got multiple businesses, but your what I heard is that you saw problems, and then you created organizations to solve those problems.
And they're all geared to enhancing people's lives.
Right.
Everything.
And I love that. So they're all geared towards your personal mission, right?
Yeah. Personal mission, change the world for one person at a time.
There you go. So what is it? What is your process? You said, specifically with the race car driving, it's like you're doing the thing and then you're driving the car for autism and it got too big and then you open up a not-for-profit. What generally is your process from, just the, hey, I think I can do this thing, to starting a business cetera, et cetera.
That's great because it changes, and it changes based on the situation and what's currently going on. I saw a quote once and it was great. Your typical entrepreneur jumps off a cliff and figures out how to build a plane on the way down. And I've been guilty of that sometimes. And then I've also been very much of the mindset, hey, we have to have all our I's dotted and our T's crossed before we do this. And it kind of depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, when I did the first autism awareness not for profit race, we decided we're doing the race, let's figure it out.
Right.
And then we did the second race and we had some more sponsors. And while we're figuring it out, it just about killed me because, yeah, I'm still running my own business and I've got other stuff. And now that becomes a full time job for another 6 or 8 weeks before the big race. And it's like, I can't do it. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not doing it again. And the sponsors came back and like, hey, we're going to give you more money. We're going to do more. And my developer said, why don't you start a not for profit? That process became a lot different. I knew
Yeah.
nothing about a not for profit. I was stepping in complete uncharted territory. So for me, that process was I need to learn a lot. I need to get an attorney. I need to get a board. I need to get some advisors because I don't mind being in uncharted territory and I don't
Yeah.
mind figuring it out. But when that figuring it out could have massive ramifications that affect not just me, but how I'm doing stuff and the legalities, I had to get a lot of advice and a lot of help. Does
Mm,
that make any
mm.
sense?
It does. It does. It does. It does. I can relate to all of those, jumping off the bridge, building something on the way down. But, there are those parts of my business where I'm just like really, really taking the time to meticulously walk through, how I want customer experience to be or, whatever that's going to be. I totally get that. One of the things, and I'm curious, one of the I don't know if I actually have enough of it sometimes, but one of the things I'm curious about is fear and fear of the unknown to the extent, I said it from the extent of, do you ever find yourself leveraging fear so that you are able to do the thing that you need to do?
Yes and no. So I hate fear. I think fear is a horrible motivator.
Hmm.
I think understanding what you're concerned about and using that as a motivation is different than necessarily fear. Fear
Hmm.
gets used in such wrong ways, and fear gets confused with anxiety so often. Fear is something that's real, anxiety is
Yeah.
something that's perceived. So
Right.
I'm in my office right now, and if I'm worried about getting eaten by a lion, and I'm thinking about that, there's no lions in here. That would be anxiety. But drop a lion who's hungry in my office. That's your true fear. Now
Yeah.
now it becomes real. I think that fear component in so many aspects crawls into people's heads and it plays with them. I remember reading a book by Mogadot and it was called Solve for Happy. If you haven't read it, it's a great book. I first heard him on a podcast and I read his book, and someplace in his book he was talking about people's ways of finding to be happy and the things you do. And he said you got to ask yourself this question: what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? And then
Hmm.
you need to be realistic. Is that realistic?
Yeah.
And what if it is the worst? So what? Is it that bad? Most of the time, when you start thinking, like, what's the worst? And you spend some time thinking about it, like, you come up with solutions, you come up with other things. If that happens, I find a way because there's nothing that we deal with in business or in other parts of our lives that compare to the real tragedies we deal with the
Yeah.
loss of loved ones, with the loss of our own health, with the loss of our own future. At some point in time, we know the time is coming, you know? Like, so what's the worst that can happen here? It's really not that bad.
A friend of mine has on her keychain. She's got this little sign that says, "But did you die? But did you die?" It's like you tried the thing, but did you die? Obviously not, right?
Well, you've heard of Gary V, right? So I saw this years ago and it has stuck with me. He's in his limo, he's in New York City, or he's in a car service in New York City, and somebody bangs on the window and says, give me your best advice in 3 words. He looks at her and goes, you're going to die. And people are like, that's mean. That's horrible. No, it's not. It's real. Because guess what? None of us are getting out of here alive, right? None of us. And I
Right.
watched him the other night and he said, you weren't alive for a very long time. Then you're born and you live for a little while and then you're dead for a very long time. So you got this little window of time. That's what you got. What are you
Right.
afraid
Right.
of?
Right. Right.
You
Do you
know?
think about that? Is that like a motivating factor for you? It's just like, I've got, you know, 80 years on the planet, you know, I need to do as much as I can, or are you just kind of like the one day at a time kind of guy, or
No, I do think about that. I think, I've written what I want somebody to say at my funeral. I know what I want that to look like. So
yeah,
because I know what I want that to look like, I know how I want to live my life.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I kind of, reverse engineer it. So if I want people to say this about me, and at the end of the day, pardon my French, I don't give a shit what anybody really thinks about me. Okay.
yeah,
But if that's what they're saying about me, then I better live my life in such a way that they're saying that. Whether they
yeah,
say it or not, I don't care. I had this
right,
conversation with my wife the other night about legacy, and she goes, "Well, you want to be remembered." I go, "No, I don't care about being remembered. I care about leaving the place better." So if I do something good for somebody and they do it for somebody and somebody does it for somebody else, I started something. My name has nothing to do with it. Who cares? But it did impact people.
yeah,
And
I
I
love
think
that.
whether it's in business, whether it's in your personal life, it's all intertwined. People talk about work-life balance. I'm like, bullshit. It doesn't exist. I think it was, I don't remember what book it was, but it talked about the counterbalance in work life because they're intertwined. You can't, in today's day and age, it's not like it was 65 years ago when you leave the factory at night and you're
Hmm.
done.
Hmm.
It's intertwined. For most of the people in the civilized world, stuff intertwines, whether it's a phone ringing or a boss calling or an email coming, something happens at night or on the weekend. Oh, by the way, while you're at work, you get a call from a school teacher, or you've got to go to a doctor's appointment, or you get a call from a parent that something's happened. It's intertwined. It all becomes one. So we have to learn to accept that.
Yeah, yeah,
And how I got
absolutely.
there, I don't even know.
It's all good. It's all good. What is that one thing, you know, that you want? I'm not gonna say, you know, that you want people to remember you by, but what is that layer of impact that you want to make on the world that changes lives?
I don't know if it's one thing because I try and help so many different people in so many different ways. But I think there's a level of understanding, kindness, and compassion. And I see it by having a daughter on the autism spectrum. And I see the people who don't understand, who look down, who do the wrong thing, and not doing the wrong thing out of malice. They do the wrong thing because they don't know any better, or they think something, and I'll say because they're ignorant, and I'm not going to use ignorant in a bad way. I'm not calling them stupid. Ignorant is you
Hmm.
truly don't know, and they
Yeah,
don't know. And I've had good friends of mine who've learned a ton about autism and about meltdowns and about anxiety and about ADHD and about what sensory overload is. And they have no idea. And I'm only talking about autism. Right now, 1 in 31 kids is diagnosed with autism. You think about all the other developmental types of handicaps that are out there. There are so many children who are growing up into society and into adulthood. And for the most part, society doesn't understand. Society doesn't know how to interact. And a lot of these people can bring a lot to us. I saw something yesterday and it was amazing. And I get to see a lot about whether it's autism or ADHD or people on the spectrum. And I take this stuff in and then I try and share it. I joke around that I'm just a thief because I take this great stuff in from other people and they're like, I want my voice to go and share it because I can't get it all by myself. But it was this, I don't remember a story, a video I saw. A little girl comes home from school and she's got A. And then one of the things says, her ability to focus in large groups, F, or she fails or she's not good at it. And she's
yeah.
stuck on that, embarrassed about that, and sad about that. And her mom is talking to her and it says, well, maybe that's not so bad. She's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm going to just make up names. She goes, well, do you remember you were in the lunchroom and you saw Billy was eating all by himself and he felt sad? You noticed that, so you went and ate with him. Do you remember when we were traveling to grandma's and we drove over the bridge and you noticed the sunset in the mountains and nobody else noticed and you pointed out to all of us and we saw that? We all got something special because of that. Do you remember you saw this kid being bullied and nobody else noticed it or paying attention and you went and said something and you helped him? So sometimes what we think is a challenge ends up being somebody's superpower.
Yeah,
But as
yeah,
groups in a society, we need to turn around and look at that. You talk about winning. Sometimes we can look at these things and people see it as, well, this is a failure. This is a loss. No, just flip how you look at it. And it's something winning. It's something you change how you look at something. And the world changes. Glass half full, glass half empty. If I'm coming to the mindset of the glass half empty, my life sucks. The glass half full, winning mindset. Same glass, same amount of water, different thought process.
Yeah. 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 It
You
was
can tell I get
interesting.
passionate about this.
All good, all good. We're gonna stay with this. My father and my sister both work with special needs children, and so
God
I've
bless
always
them.
been exposed to kids with different different disorders. My question for you is, and this is the entrepreneurial side of things. Okay, so your daughter takes a lot more energy, let's say, to make sure she's okay. How do you balance this? Balance isn't the right word. How do you make sure you've got everything covered? How do you make sure all the plates remain spinning?
Good people, faith.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, this is just how it is. Sometimes a plate falls, and you got to pick it up and start spinning it again. I call myself an autism super dad. And I think of myself as autism super dad. So if you think about autism spectrum disorder, ASD, autism super dad, ASD, my daughter and I will joke about that when we do that. But that's my number one priority. There's nothing in the world more important than my daughter. That's it. And I don't know any parent who's not going to say the same thing about their children. They're just not. So for my businesses, for those other things, for my not-for-profit, which started because my daughter's the foundation, we joke around. I drive the race car, but she's the driving force behind all of it. She's the driving force behind the business. I want to be able to make sure that when we're gone, every special needs parent worries about this. My daughter's okay. I don't want her to be a ward of the state or something like that. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I think she's going to be self-sufficient with some help, with a job coach, with some other stuff. But you push hard. You sacrifice what you need to sacrifice. And sometimes you got to step back and be like, hey, I'm not taking care of myself. I have to figure out how to take care of myself. No different than getting on the plane. Put your oxygen mask on before you put somebody else's oxygen mask on. And there's times that like I'm neglecting myself so I can do everything else. And I've got to take a step back and be like, nope, I need to take care of myself. I need to do this. And I've got to have good people in place. And I'm lucky, 10 years I've been running my express employment. We've had some transition in some staff. I've got an amazing staff right now. There are some newer folks. There's some folks who've been with me for 6+ years. There are folks I would trust my life with and I would trust my daughter with. And you have to have that. All right. And you've got to have people who are open with you, are honest with you. They'll call bullshit if they say it. They'll tell you they think you're wrong and why. I understand I still have final say. It's my business. But I have a responsibility to a lot of people. So, yeah, it's my business. My name signs the check, but it keeps a lot of us living in our homes and driving our cars and building our future. So, that team of people and what they kick back to me and what they share with me, I've got to listen to that to make sure we all stay with that winning mindset and that we're moving in the right direction. And I'm not always right. Smart enough to know what I know and what I don't know. There were times as a group of us like, hey, we're not 100% sure what to do. So let's cautiously go down this road and see what happens. If it blows up, we'll turn around and go the other way.
Excellent, excellent. How do you lead these types of teams? And you've got different organizations going, and you've got to manage them all. You've got to lead them all, at the same time. How do you maintain that?
Leadership is hard. And actually, one of the things I coach and teach on is the difference between leadership and management, because it's two different things.
Hmm.
Organizations need managers. They need people who are going to manage the process, who are going to manage inventory, manage finances, manage schedules. But you don't manage people, you lead people. So I think a couple of the key things of leading people is communication. We pride ourselves on insane communication with our clients, internally, externally. You have to communicate. And there's no surprises with communication. So the more you can communicate, the more they know, the more empowered they are. Go back to fear. When you're not communicating, you leave everything open to people's speculation. And speculation was usually going to go negative. I hate closed doors meetings unless
Hmm.
I can explain to people why I'm having a closed door meeting and what's going on. They need to know that. So that communication. I think leading by example works really well. And I think
Yeah.
having accountability across the board is important. You have to hold people accountable. So they have to know, A, what's expected of them. They have to know what happens if they don't achieve what's expected of them. but they also need to know the why. If they don't know the why, it doesn't make sense. I'll give you an example. Through the employment agency, we've got a project tomorrow. It's a one-day project. They needed a bunch of people to do it. It doesn't pay a lot. We got the people, but they're on a bus line and they can't get to this location without a bus. And there's no bus line getting there. We convinced the company to go ahead and rent a 12-passenger van. We do this once a blue moon. Some of my new staff is here. They've never seen this happen before. So I had one of my new staff members start hunting down the 12-passenger van. Finally found where we can get one. She went back and forth. She's a young girl. She's never done anything like this before. So she comes to me. She goes, there's no 15 passengers. There's only 12. How much are the 12? Got to go make a phone call again. All right, I got the 12. This is how much it is. Does that include insurance? Got to go make a phone call again. This is how much the insurance is. Does that include taxes? And when can I pick it up? Oh, got to go make a phone call again. So like we went through all of this. I could have taken it and run with it, but I challenged her and pushed her to keep going. So in the craziness of before the podcast today, I went and picked up this van because I'm going to drive these people to work tomorrow. I come back from the van. I come back from picking up the van. It's parked outside right now. And I walk in the door and they're like, we were just talking about you. I'm like, why? She goes, what other boss or owner is going to do this and go help these people get to work and help us hit our numbers and do all this stuff? Like, I don't know. It seems natural to me.
Right.
But then I called the young lady who did all this stuff and I called her in my office and I said, I want you to look at that white van out there. And she's like, why? I go, because that wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. Those people going to work tomorrow wouldn't be happening if it weren't for you. And I see her face just getting brighter and smiling. I go, if it weren't for you. She goes, that's a perspective I hadn't thought of. I said, I know, because you get so thought up in what we're doing. But yeah, I know how to do that. I know what it would take to get it, but I'm stretched thin. If you're not here, those people aren't going to work tomorrow. We're not billing that client. That client's going to go use somebody else. Our internal team, who's going to get some commissions for getting this job done and helping those people, doesn't happen. You made that happen. And to me, that's leadership. Got to show her what she did. And the same point in time, and yesterday, while she was struggling to make all this happen, coaching her on, hey, you got to make this phone call. Hey, you got to make this phone call. And then we sat last night and we talked about it. And it's like, hey, what'd you learn today? And she goes, I really got to think through the process more. I said, absolutely. I did not hire you to be a coffee maker. I don't need somebody to make me a cup of coffee and go do this or go do that. I need you to think through the process, solve it, and make it happen. She's young. She's learning. To me, that leadership is about elevating people, making them be the very best person that they can be. And it's not just here. It's like, together we're reading different books. I've read lots of books over the years. So I'm having them read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. A lot of them are younger and they're in that mindset where what they do today will change their lives forever. Give them that opportunity to think. No, go ahead.
Given what you're pouring into people, what do you expect people to carry with them after they've worked with you? So they're working with you for a while. You like this young lady, eventually she's going to go off and she's going to do, some other thing perhaps. What would be that gem that she carries with her to the next organization where she serves?
It's different for everybody. So
sure.
Back in June, a young lady who'd been with me 4 years and, she had been boom, 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 boom. But I was really like maybe her second real job out of college and she rose through the ranks here and she was amazing. And she came into my office one day and she said, I have to tell you something. And I looked at her and she goes, you know what it is. And she started to cry. I'm like, don't cry. She goes, this is hard. I have to give you my notice. Yeah. And she goes, I promise you I wasn't looking. I got headhunted. I'm like, that's okay. She goes, and we went back and forth with it. And I asked her, I said, is there anything I can do to save you? She goes, you can't afford it. And that she also knows that because I'm open about what we're doing in revenue wise. Like I share that with my team. And she's like, they're more than doubling my salary. And I'm going to work 3 minutes from my house and I get half days on Fridays. And I'm going to be in charge of payroll analytics for a global company. I'm like, that is effing awesome.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to be mad at me. I can't be mad at you. Like, you have learned, you have grown, you've done this stuff. I'm proud of you. And she's like, I don't want you to be proud of me. I want you to be angry at me. I'm like, I can't be. She goes, I need you and I need Jen. So Jen who's elevating to office manager or ops manager. I need you guys to be mad at me because otherwise this is just too hard. I'm like, we're not going to be mad at you. We're proud of you. We're sad. We're really, really sad. This sucks. Don't get me wrong. We're happy for you though. And we can't be who we are if we're not that. So, funny is while she was here, one of the things she was in charge of was collections. And we had a client who we had been struggling to get paid for. She got frustrated. We sent them to collections. They still didn't get paid. We tried a different strategy just yesterday with somebody else. We collected the money. The first thing I did was pick up the phone and call her. I was like, you wouldn't believe who we collected from. She's like, no way. I'm like, we just collected it in today, paid in credit card. She was like, that is so, like, we still have that, you know? And she, like, I don't care less about her because she's not here anymore. I'd still drop what I was doing to go help her if I had to.
Yeah.
That, that doesn't change. Like, it's when you care about people, you care about people. And whether they're here or they go someplace else, and they're going to go someplace else. There's a point in time, I'm going to go someplace else. The one thing in life we can all count on is change. That's it. Everything is, well, and taxes. Who knows even what's happening with that? So, I mean, we know stuff is going to change. But if when somebody leaves here, their life is better, they're more enriched, they can take some stuff and pass it on down the line. Everybody wins.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that. I'm just thinking about what that message to young leaders would be, become
Create a
that
ripple effect.
to become that people-oriented leader that has, is like you said, you can call your ex-employee back and say, hey, let's go have pizza or something like that.
100. I can call multitudes of my ex-employees back and do that.
Yeah.
There's very few that I couldn't. There's even people who I've had to let go, and that the relationship is now better than ever. And I'm not going to go into stories or share names. That's real. That's a real story. There's people who I've let go who have had the worst of the worst things to say to me. And then over time, when life crumbled, they picked up the phone and they called for help and they got it because that's who I am. And I understand, not every leader is going to be like me. I got lucky. So when I was growing up, my parents said two things. You either need to be a psychologist or a lawyer. That was it. Because you know how to debate, you know how to convince people of stuff, and you really get people. So I chose sales. It's kind of the best of both.
Hmm.
And I think sales is in everything in this world. My wife is a school psychologist. She's got her PhD. She's got a doctorate. She's super educated. She talks in sentences, and I'm like, I have no idea what she's even saying. Like big psychological words. And she will tell people, Jordan can help more people than I'll ever help. He gets people better. I get people. I understand it. I understand what motivates them. I look at them and I'm like, all right, something's not right. What's going on? And that becomes one of my superpowers. And I think that helps me immensely in business. On the flip side, it also hurts me. And where it hurts is I understand somebody's going on. I understand they're in pain. I understand this other stuff. I don't want to inflict more pain sometimes. And that becomes hard because their personal life is blowing up. It hurts their stuff at work. Now what do? I don't want to fire somebody. They're already having a hard time. And it took me some time to understand this. If I don't get rid of this one person, I'm jeopardizing this whole team. And that doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that? I don't know, that moral compass that drives you. I mean, the stories that you're telling me are above and beyond, what I think typical leaders would do. What is that thing that says, hey, I have to do the right thing no matter what?
The simple answer, it's on our values. It says, do the right thing even when nobody's looking. I mean, it hangs in our office. It's just in different places. I mean, it's just there. It's do the right, it's integrity.
But that's something that you wrote though. And so where
It
where
is.
does that come from?
My dad, my mom, how I was raised is maybe, I don't know. For clarifications, it doesn't say do the legal thing. It says do the right thing. They're not always the same. But I'm not sitting here saying, hey, we break the law and we do all types of stuff like that, but do the right thing. I'll give you an example. Another story of doing the right thing. We're always trying to get people to refer other people to us. And 5 years ago or so, we got a nice 60-inch TV. We put it in the lobby. We started in September and said, hey, win this just before Christmas. All you got to do is refer somebody to work. If you refer somebody to work, we hire them, we work at least 50 hours, your name goes in the hat. Your name can go in the hat a ton of times. So it was the week before Christmas, and it's like, all right, it's Friday night. We're going to go live on camera, or we didn't go live. We were just videoing it, and we pick a name out of the hat. And the name we pick out of the hat was a guy who had worked for us, who got fired from the job, cursed out the supervisor, threatened my front office person. It just had an overall, we ended up with a really bad experience with this guy. And nobody on my staff liked him. and he won. And they all looked at me like, nobody's going to know. Throw the name in the hat, pick somebody else. I'm like, I can't. And they're like, yes, you can. And we don't want him winning it. I'm like, listen, if I do that now, you guys will never trust me again. Something will come up someday, and you'll know if I was willing to do that today, I'll do it to you, or I'll do it to somebody else. Can't do it. He won. Fair and square. He won. You guys are the witness. Nobody else knows. I'm sorry you guys aren't happy about it. And they're like, yeah, you're right. You're right. Now, the flip side, when we let the guy know when he came and got it, he came in a small Toyota. This is 60-inch TV in a big box. It's flurrying and snowing outside. He straps it to the roof of the car, and we're all praying. It slides off and he runs it over. So do the right thing. You don't have to wish the best. And that's why I clarify, like, you got to do the right thing. You don't have to hope for it, but you got to do it, and sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes knowing what the right thing to do is hard. And I challenge my people with it. We had a situation with a client and an associate not that long ago. And the client called one of my employment specialists and said, hey, can we do this? Now, based on the contract that we have, the answer would be no. But there were extenuating circumstances. So she came to me and said, can we do this? I'm like, I don't know, you choose. She's like, what do you mean I choose? I said, make a decision. She goes, this is a big decision. It's going to cost us money one way or another. You're right. It can cost us money. It can cost us a client. It costs different stuff. Let me know what you come up with. And the whole team is hearing this. And they're like, 20 minutes later, she goes, I don't know what to do. I said, go up front. She goes, can you help me? I said, yes. Go up front, read our mission statement and read our values. See if that helps you. And then let me know what you decided. And then I left. Nice. I went driving around. I went to see a customer and do something else. I was like, I don't want to be there for this. At the end of the day, whatever she chose wasn't going to be detrimental, wasn't going to put us out of business. Mm-hmm. I would have backed her either way, but I know what I was hoping for. And she didn't. She did the right thing. And when I came back, I didn't even say anything. I just went about my business. And she's like, don't you even want to know what I did? I said, I'm sure you did the right thing. So then she told me, and she said, what would you have done? I go, it doesn't matter. She goes, it does to me. What would you have done? I said, exactly what you did. That's just, to me, that's the leadership. That's that guiding principle that comes from, how do I want my daughter to be? What do I want to set as an example for my daughter? Before you said, where do I get that from? I wrote my eulogy. If I wrote my eulogy and I know the impact that I want to leave behind, that kind of sets how I've got to act. Do I want to make a ton of money one day or whatever? Sure. Do I want to do it at the expense of hurting somebody for any reason or not? No way. Would I rather make a lot less and make a bigger impact? Absolutely. And I want to surround myself with those people too. I want to surround myself with people like, let's do good stuff. Let's help people be better in their lives. And you can't help people without getting something out of it. You know that. You help some old lady across the street, you just made your day. Your day is better. You got nothing out of it. She can do nothing for you, but she did a ton.
Yeah, without even doing anything. Jordan, we have to wrap up. What do you want to leave our audience with?
Think. Before you judge, think. What might somebody be going through? What challenges might be somebody having that you're not aware of? Especially when you see children having a meltdown. It's not always going to be a case of bad parenting. It might be a case that the kid just doesn't know how to handle this. They're just not wired in such a way that they can cope with the frustration. They can cope with the noise. They can cope with sensory overload. There's so many challenges we all face. So before you go and judge and look down upon, right, looking with kindness and understanding.
That's definitely one to remember. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolute pleasure. Folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. Keep winning.